Hello, 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 and welcome to Getting Real with Paula. Tonight, we're going to talk to Ketcia Peters, who is tonight the lady in red, and we're talking about community involvement, and it fits right in with the perspective of uplifting individuals as well as communities. In that conversation, what I'm trying to pass on or what we're going to share is some of Ketcia Peters' journey and mostly how it shaped her into being the passionate activist that she is today. So, Ketcia, could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why your name could be familiar to some of the people in our audience?
Hi, Paula. Oh my, oh my. I like to describe myself as a very proud mom, a wife, a community activist, an entrepreneur, and someone that really tries to live my life in a way where I could make an impact to everyone that come across my path. And the way that I think that people may recognize my name is through my community activist work that I've done. Um, I was the community co-chair of the Ottawa Police Community Action Committee. And during the time that I was a co-chair, we were going through a very difficult period when it comes to community police relationships in the city. And because of that, it raised the profile of the community during that time. And that's probably how folks may know of me. I've been called in to speak in the media, mainstream media, and also different other platforms that would raise awareness around community policing issues. Sorry,
Thank you. Thank
sorry,
you.
somebody's phone is distracting me. I'm sorry. Like, come and get your phone. It was ringing and it distracted me. Um,
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Look, can you come and grab your phone?
We're gonna to continue.
Okay.
And when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that you, at one point in your journey, you were an at-risk youth, and that you even dropped out of school for a certain amount of time. And what I want you to maybe share with the audience is what was taking place around that time for you.
Yeah, so I come from a very humble beginning. My mom was a theologist. She was a very devout Christian, very dedicated to the church. But we lived in a poverty area. We lived in the ghetto of Montreal, and I'm the eldest of five girls. So my mom had five children. Being a single mom, living in that kind of environment was extremely difficult because although we lived in the confine of a very religious mindset and upbringing, but as soon as I walked through those doors, I was facing a totally different life. I was facing a life where there were gang members in my neighborhood. There were people that were just looking for ways to make a living. They would be selling drugs and doing other criminal activities in order to make a living. So having to confront those type of individual every day, I started to create a strong character in order not to be bullied, in order not to be also a victim. In that kind of environment, you're either a prey or you pray. And although I did not prey on people, but I did create a strong enough reputation where I came across as being very strong and someone that could not be messed with. And because of having to survive, having to put on these different type of using those type of tools in order to survive in that environment, it was very problematic. I started having behaviors that were very destructive. I started uh, hanging out with the wrong people, and because of that, my mom was very concerned, and she sent me to Haiti. There was a time when she had sent me to Haiti for a period of time, hoping that that would change my attitude. And then she also sent me to Las Vegas in the U.S. to live with my uncle for a certain period of time in the hope that that masculine um, influence would help me uh, get myself back in the narrow path. Um, Coming from Las Vegas, my mom was continuing to struggle financially, and we were living in a shelter. My sisters and my mom were living in a shelter, and I decided I didn't want to live in that shelter. I didn't want to be in an environment where, first of all, it was not very safe, I find, but also they were telling us what to do, when to leave, when to come home. We had to rely on the handout that the government gave us. It was a really difficult, environment and lifestyle. So I left. I left at the age of 16 years old to be able to make a life for myself.
You mentioned a turning point, what we call the aha moment for you as a teenager, and that was a beautiful story that you told me. Would you mind sharing that? What made you switch from being a at-risk youth to I can do better?
Absolutely, yes. I will never forget Mrs. McGuire. She was my teacher, my high school teacher. Well, she was not my high school teacher. When I was in Las Vegas, during the time that I told you my mom had sent me to Las Vegas to live with my uncle, I was getting in a lot of trouble. I would get in physical fights a lot because, right, I would have to maintain my reputation as a tough person. Also, sometimes I would get into fight because I would be defending people like the underdogs that the tough kids were trying to kind of use in order to make a name for themselves. So they would try to use them to embarrass them and beat up on them, and I would kind of defend them. So I would also get into fight with bullies as well to defend underdogs. But because I was getting in so much trouble, the school kicked me out of regular school hours. So I started to attend an after school program for troubled youth. And that after school program did not follow a regular curriculum, but instead what it did is that it provided us with programs and different exploration on who we are. Like there was a lot of personal development, um, kind of a programming where they asked us questions about our strengths or weaknesses and what we are capable of accomplishing and what our contribution to a team could be, what a contribution to the school could be. So really a lot of self-development so we understand who we are as an individual. I remember learning around that time that I was a type B. There was a type A, type B, type C. There was also the color coding red, blue, yellow, and the color coded blue, which I was a color coded blue, was someone who was a leader, but also a very good follower, someone who was able to help build a team. But when time needed it, I would also be able to lead a team. And I often made decisions with my friends that would get us in trouble. One particular time, I asked one of my friends to steal a car. Right, I kind of manipulating them, not manipulating, but I kind of inspired them, not inspired, but I kind of convinced them to steal a car. So we go to the west side. The west side of Las Vegas was the bad side, very, very bad side. My uncle lived in a suburbia area of Las Vegas. And the first thing he told us when we arrived in Las Vegas, to me and my sister, is that not to go to the west side. The west side was a very, very dangerous place. You don't want to go there. All the gang members, the Crips and the Bloods and the Gersons are there. You don't want to go to the west side. Of course, what's the first thing my sister and I want to do? Go to the west side. So we wanted to go to the west side to find out what it's about. And a lot of our enemies from school lived in the west side as well. So I kind of convinced some kids to steal a car so we could go to the west side. So they did that. So they stole the car, and I jumped in the car. Went to the west side. We got to up to no good, obviously. But then my teacher, to go back to Mrs. Maguire, she would try to get me engaged and I wouldn't engage. To me, first of all, I had a language barrier. I did not speak English very well, so I didn't want to show that neither. So I didn't want to let people know that I didn't understand most of the things that were being taught in the school, and I couldn't read in English. So I really acted really tough. So I wouldn't engage. I wouldn't even try to read in the class or from the class because I didn't want anybody to realize that I don't want to read in English because I was French. I was coming from Montreal. And so I wouldn't engage with her at all. She would get me to do activities. I would budge. I didn't want to listen to her. I wouldn't even respond or anything. And she also showed me, she said, you know what, Ketcia, your personality type is a type of personality that the same way that you were able to convince a group of youth to steal a car is the same way you could have convinced a group of youth to do something positive. So you are able to have a group of people do certain things that you kind of encourage them to do. So that means you have also the power to do them, to encourage them to do things that are good, that are not going to get them in trouble, and that's not going to get you in trouble. So I realized that. I listened to what you were saying, but still I was not engaging. So I was listening at that point, but I was still, I think, like, you know what, it's okay. Stop acting like you care about me. You do not care about me. None of you care about us. So stop pretending. And then it wasn't until she said to the whole class at some point, because we were clowning on her and we were like kind of making music and rap songs and we weren't paying attention to what she was trying to tell us. And one day she goes to the classroom, she goes, you guys think you're so smart. You think you're bad, right? But guess what? You ever wonder that every time there's a shooting or stabbing in the West Side, in the ghetto, that the police always takes forever, takes for a long time to arrive there? And we're still kind of like, yeah, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about, white lady. She was a white teacher. So she goes, the reason why they take so long to arrive in the ghetto and the West Side is because they want to make sure that whoever got stabbed or whoever got shot actually dies. So you guys are here acting the fool, and you're really playing into the game of other people. There are people that don't want to see you. You're right. There are people that want you to kill each other. And by the way you're behaving, you're actually meeting that objective for them. So they'll take their time before they show up to make sure that the damage is already done. And to me, when she said that, it was a big wow, wait a minute, right? If I'm going to play in anyone's agenda, it'll be mine. And that's really when I started to realize how my action had a counter reaction in the overall society. That's when I started realizing that everything I did played a part in something bigger. I started listening to music, to rap music. One of my favorite artists was Tupac Shakur. I don't know if you know Tupac, if you ever heard of his music, but one of the first songs of Tupac that I heard was Brenda. And Brenda, I don't know if you don't know the lyrics, but it was a really conscious song. And it talked about how Brenda, it goes like, I heard Brenda has a baby, but Brenda barely got her brain. A damn shame. The girl can barely spell her name. But that's not our problem. That's up to Brenda's family. But let me tell you how it affects the whole community. And then now it goes into how it affects her grandmother who was taking care of her, but then now her grandmother's distraught. And then the extended family and the aunt and the uncle and the schools and the welfare system. And then now the government. And then now the community and the society. That's when, wow, right? That's when it all came together for me to see how I played a part and everything that was happening around me. And I decided at that moment to decide to play a positive part versus a negative part. So that was the first haha moment for me.
Thank you for sharing this. This is powerful. It's for any parent's nightmare when you have a child that is misbehaving or getting in with the wrong crowd. This is something important to realize, is the sense where do they appreciate the impact, the larger impact? And I don't know, sometimes as parents, who do we need to go turn to assist in those moments? You your experience has shaped you. And what I want to find out is how those earlier experience have changed or have helped you become the adult, the mom, or the entrepreneur that you are right now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that I really helped me become a strong person. I grew a really strong, strong, like a tough skin. I'm able to overcome so many challenges, which I continue to overcome. And that's one of the impact that it had on me. It also had an impact on how I appreciate um, every little blessing that I have in my life. I'm a person who's very extremely positive because I know I'm able to go back to these moments where I didn't have anything, where I didn't even have a can of noodle soup to eat, right? So I'm able to go back. I mean, these feelings, it never goes away, no matter so that no matter how successful you are, you're never gonna feel successful because these feelings are never gonna go away. You still remember the time when you were being moved from place to place, from home to home. So having that stability. I'm a person now I don't like to move. I like stability. I like to have a stable environment. I like to have stable, my friends, they mean everything to me. I built very strong, lasting relationships because I moved all the time. So it was difficult for me to build that kind of relationship, those type of relationship. So having a strong community as well became very important because I remember the importance of having a strong family, an intact family. So having a strong community became extremely important for me, and knowing that, like I said, my contribution to this society has an impact, no matter how small it is. So all of our contribution has an impact. So I understand that. So when I'm doing my community work, I'm doing it knowing that there are people that are watching me, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, but people are watching all the time. There are youth that are even if we decide, okay, I don't want to be a role model, I don't care. Well, whether you want to be a role model or not, you are. Our youth are watching everything we do, everything we say. So I make it a conscious decision to try to impact in a positive way as much as I can. How else did it impact me? It impacted me in a way where I understand the value of long-term gain, not just wanted to have a benefit today. So being able to be patient, be able to work without harvesting anything today for a greater benefit in the long term is also some of the skills and the mindset that I've developed over the years.
Thank you. I can hear the passion and the fact that community engagement as well as giving back is important to you. I understand that you are working on a youth program. What is your vision for that program?
My vision is for that program is for me to give back what Mrs. Maguire did for me. The program is called It's a Trap. It's a Trap is being run by a nonprofit, Roots and Culture Canada. It's a nonprofit that I'm running, and it's a early youth intervention program that uses sport and focus coaching, solution focused coaching in order to deter youth from a life of crime and also from making decision and to enter in the sex trade lifestyle as well. So through sport, that's how we attract them. They come into our program, and then through there, we have different coaching sessions, sometimes group sessions, sometimes coaching sessions, sometimes one-on-one sessions. And in those coaching sessions, we have a curriculum and a workbook where we develop those different conversations. We foster those different ideas with them. So we'll ask them questions about who they are and what their strengths are. What do they bring to a team? What do they bring to their workplace? What is it that their contribution is to any environment that they enter into? So we kind of develop this kind of, we foster these ideas for that. And yeah, so that's pretty much what it's an early intervention program where we want to try to get to these youth before they make the decision to enter in a life of crime. Because often they don't really know what's really behind the curtain. It looks glamorous when you watch the gangster movies, right? It looks, when you watch Scarface and those mafia movies, you think, oh my God, this is all the money and the bling bling, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of it. The youth think that they are entering into a loyal family, so that your gang members are going to be your friend to thick and thin, and but the reality that it's not, they're not loyal. At the end of the day, if one person gets arrested, they will rat on you, they will bring everybody down. That's the reality of it. So we see ourselves as the matrix, right? You have the blue pill and we have the red pill. So we show up in the schools, okay, because we would show up in the schools and before COVID, and we would also go to the different communities, the churches and things like that, and we tell them, listen, we're here today. You already know what's in what the blue pill entail. We're here today to tell you about the red pill and what really goes on behind the curtain. And that's really what it does. And we have youth or even adults that comes with us who share their lived experience, adults who were at risk youth, who were in jails, adults who were in the sex trade industry as well, who share their experience. They share how they were groomed, from the boyfriend to get on the street, right? So women, sometimes they have that, they don't, by the time you get into, caught up in the game, you're totally taken back. You didn't see it coming. So it's a trap. It's definitely a trap. You don't see it coming. It happens really gradually. And we're there to coach them through it, to identify themselves as youth who wants to be in the right path, or at least to bring an awareness so they never get into it in the first place.
Thank you. It's really great work that needs to be done and in our communities, and we're talking ours, but also when you're talking about youth, teenage years, this is a time where those decisions feel so temporary when they're making it, but they're not realizing the longer term impact. So bringing that awareness to them earlier makes to me so much more sense. In that conversation, and because I know you've mentioned that you have a few businesses, I I have to ask, and this is maybe because I am the boundary queen, and I know what it's like to have a lot of things on your plate. What are some of the boundaries that you've had to implement, be it in your personal or in your professional life, that have created the most space for you and what you think is important?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on that, Paul. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still working on it. But at least one boundary that I've created for myself is to at least get a decent night of sleep. I used to run on very little sleep. I would be so involved in having so many things to do that even when I was sleeping, I would be thinking about planning about what I got to do the next day and things like that. But I've made it a point to make sure that I have at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, especially since I've started having children. My kid still wakes up in the middle of the night to come in her bedroom and everything. So I make it a point to tell him, no, at night, I want mommy has to sleep at night. So when it's nighttime, you do not disturb me. So I'm very creating a strong boundary with that. So that's the one boundary I was able to create so far. I'm working on the others. I have a team of people who are working with me on all those projects. So that's the thing. You cannot do these things on your own. For my business, I own a retirement home. For my retirement home, I have a great manager who's doing the day-to-day operation every day. I have great staff, PSWs, that are dedicated and that cares about the seniors that they're working for. For the nonprofit organization, I have a great president. I have all the crew. Shout out to AJ, shout out to Alan, shout out to Tracy, to all the people that are helping me that take some of their time. Shout out to Moonfu, shout out to Captain, that are taking time from their work or their life to show up, because sometimes we don't even have any money. We don't always have funding to be able to deliver those training, and they were there from the beginning. They delivered. They helped them deliver and develop those programs with me for free out of their own time. And I just want to say, you can't do it alone, so you do need a team. But I'm working on being able to delegate more and really having more people take on the leadership role on some of those initiatives. But at the end of the day, that's the secret. You really need to work with other people. You can't do it alone.
I love this element that you've mentioned, the working with others and recognizing that there's only so much you can do when you're all by yourself. There's this African proverb that says, alone you go faster, but together we
You go
go
further.
further. And that's what matters. And I remember hearing you talking about the business, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's gonna burst at the seams. There's no way you can do all of that with young kids on top. So it's great news to know that you made choices to support your community, but also ensure that it didn't have a negative impact on you and your family, which is huge. Because when you go back to the storyline that you've mentioned with your mother, reality is there was too many things happening at the same time, and maybe not enough support for the kids. Not wanting to judge, but life happens so very quickly. Sometimes if we don't stop and pay attention, what are the message that we're sending our kids, then we might find ourselves in situation where we say we could have, we should have, how come we didn't see things happening? Because a lot of our teenagers that are getting in trouble, it's the sense where there's that disconnect with the family, there's that disconnect with the community, then they find a family that might not be the right family that pays attention to their best interests. So understanding that and applying it to your life and your vision, to me, is wonderful.
Mhm.
If you were to leave, let's just say, one key message with the audience, what would you want them to take away from your story?
Really work on knowing who you are,
Mhm.
developing yourself, being a self learner. Most of the things that I've learned that really helped me build everything that I built today, I did not learn in traditional school at all. I went to business school thinking I was going to learn how to make money. I was in third year, and I was still waiting for for the class where they were going to start teaching me how to make money. I did not learn about these things in school. I learned them in different conferences that I would go to and books that I would read. I learned these things in to networking, people that I met along the way, because I would go to conferences and connect with certain people from different networking environment, and through that we would learn and grow together. So I think the number one thing is to learn who you are. Another mom haha moment that I had was when I was just, I was waitressing at a restaurant, and one of my clients he just said something, and I can't remember, and he told me, oh, you should do this, whatever. I can't remember what it was, and I go to him, oh no, there's no way that would happen to me. I don't have, I'm unlucky. I just said it like this, I'm unlucky, and he goes to me, oh well, okay, you're unlucky, but sometimes your luck changes as you get older. And he just said that, and he walked away. And when he came back, I asked him, what did you mean by that? He goes, well, because that's how it is, right? It's the power of your subconscious mind. In life, you could just create your own reality. And he said it so nonchalant, like it was a matter of fact. I was like, really? And he goes, absolutely, yeah, for sure. You can't do that. Yeah, you could just create the life that you want, and then it changes things around. And so from there, he came back 2 days later because he realized I was really interested in what he was saying. He came back 2 days later, and he gave me a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And that was another boom. Ever since then, I was unstoppable. The moment that I find out I was connecting, with what what I have learned and what I had, the experience that I went through, and realizing that I could transfer a lot of those skills. Like Mrs. McGuire said, those leadership skill, instead of doing something negative, I could do positive. And the skill that I developed as a waitress, interpersonal skill, be able to get along with different type of personalities. I could transfer that into entrepreneurship and having a team of workers that are working for me, where so it was just like boom. So from there, I started learning on my own. I would go to school to get a traditional degree, just to be able to have a job while I was working on my dream, because I didn't have a family that could give me a place to stay while I was working on my dream. So I did go to school. I got a diploma in business administration, so that I could have a regular job to pay my bills while I was finishing and building my business. Because another thing I forgot to tell you is that at some point my sisters were put out. My mom had lost her home, the social housing home. So my sisters were put out on the street, and I decided to take the responsibility to raise them. So a few years I raised my sister from the age of 20 until the age of about 26, 27. I was raising my sisters. So trying to go to school, working on the weekends, as a waitress, trying to raise them, trying to show them. And they were teenagers at the time. They were like 11, 12. It was crazy. It was crazy. I don't even know how I overcame it, but I did. I overcome the situation, and today things are much better, much better. But we have different challenges all the time. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just develop yourself, get to know who you are. What are your strengths? What do you bring to the table, right? And it doesn't have to be money. It could be your personality. It could be your ability to network, your ability. So just get to know what your strengths are, who you are, so that you're always able to put a price on that value.
I love what it is that you're saying, because I often say when working with my client that nothing is in vain. Every single step of your journey prepares you for the next stage. And usually the next stage, if you learn your lesson, because you have to learn your lesson, because if you don't, it's as if you keep reliving that same reality, different people, different environment, same challenge. But if you learn your lesson, you can do that switch in your perspective and apply it for with greater result and for better, I would say, outcome. So it's those elements I find it's so precious in terms of passing those information earlier to kids, to teenagers, to young adults, so that they actually stop and pay attention and see, is this the writing I want for the rest of my life? Is this what I have in mind in terms of what happiness, success, and abundance? Because everybody wants to be rich, but you don't realize everything that comes with it. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing all of this. A beautiful story. I know not everything was easy, but as they say, if it's easy, I might not learn much. But if I work hard at it, I will get the lesson and be able to reinvest it, which obviously you have. How can people get in contact with you or hear more about the work that you do?
Simple, KetciaPeters.com. As long as you know how to spell Ketcia, Ketcia, Peters, Peters.com. I'm not a big social media person, but you can find me on my website. We deliver training on inclusion and diversity as well. We have a coaching and a consulting firm where we're, this is a great moment for us right now to create awareness around anti-racism and racism itself as a whole. So yeah, KetciaPeters.com, Ketcia, Ketcia, Peters.com, and from there we'll just take it from there.
Thank you very much for being with us. I know it's not the first time I hear your story, but it touched me again. I'm a mother. I have kids. I have 3 kids who at one point were also teenagers. And I was thinking, oh my God, for you to go back and then take your sisters and raise them as a 20-year-old, I'm telling you, whoop, whoop.
I didn't realize what I was getting myself into, Paula. I really thought, okay, this is not going to be a big deal.
You never do.
Yeah, I'm going to sit down with them. I'm going to tell them, you know what, guys, this is the deal. I pay the bills, and you guys just go to school, and you keep the house clean, and that's it. I really thought that was it. I was like, it's simple. I pay the bill, you guys, keep the house clean, and then you go to school. Little did I know.
But that's how we learn. That's how we learn. And that's wonderful. Some of what you learn with them, and not only with helping with your sister, your journey as a youth is also transferring into how you choose to raise your kids and how you impact on those youth that are maybe on the wrong path. So yeah, kudos to you. Thank you very much.
Honestly, it's not kudos to me. Like I said, it's really the fact that I see myself. I know that there's a bunch of other Ketcia Peters out there. You know what I mean? I know there's a bunch of different patrists out there. There are many of us. Like I see us today, like in the government, like many of us who came from that background who are now, infiltrating within our society. But it's not everyone who's public like I am. But there's many of us. There's a lot of us. All we need is that one person, that one adult that believes in us, would give us that piece of information or that little tool, like the book that was given to me at such a young age. Just a small little gesture could make an impact, could change the life of somebody entirely. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's a responsibility for me to share that. That's all it is. Sometimes I don't feel like doing it. It's uncomfortable for me to share my story. I would much rather be like my other friends that moved on with their life and never have to go back and talk about it. But I feel like if I don't, then I'm failing that young person that thinks that this is it for them. Because when you're young, your reality, your environment, you think this is the world. You think this is how the world is everywhere, but it's not. So I think it's my responsibility and the responsibility of so many others to let them know, no, it's not. It's not the only option. It's not the only world. There's a whole world out there, and you could make a decision to be part of it.
Thank you for keeping that decision and making changes wherever you can.
No, thank you to you. We all role models. So are you. Thank you so much. I mean, honestly, like our story are never told. Someone like you is creating a platform so our story could be told. I get interviewed by the mainstream media all the time, but they pick and choose what they're going to actually publish, to the public. So I don't get to really convey the message that I want to convey. And sometimes it's really being rushed, and we're dealing with issues in the community, and so they don't have time to. I don't have time usually to share my story the way I did with you today. So I thank you for that. I thank you for the work. I know I just realized this today how much work it takes. It takes just to put on a different show like this. The technician. Thank you to the technician, to BIA, to Luke, who's created this media, the media for Black people to be able to share their message. It's important, right? We have to be able to create our own story. We have to be able to share the information and the knowledge. So it's like I said, we're all making an impact, and we need to be. It has to be a shared leadership, and it is a shared leadership. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
It was an honor.